We're going to start off with one for the gadget fans, the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona.
Yeah, it's opening up in just a few hours' time there. All sorts of gadgets are going to be unveiled, including a $25 smartphone from Mozilla, which is aimed at emerging markets.
That's amazingly cheap, isn't it?
It really is. I don't know if we'll
Even
get
the
access.
parts you'd think would cost more than that.
I don't know if we'll have it on sale in Paris. It's not aimed at us, but it will be being unveiled in Barcelona anyway. From my point of view, one of the more useful developments is a waterproof phone that can survive an accidental dip for up to half an hour. We saw that there. And industry insiders say that wearable technology, things like smart watches, are going to be this year's hot commodity.
Among the big changes coming up in the mobile phone industry is the multiplicity of gadgets. We now use smartphones and tablets, but we're about to start using watches, and soon we'll use mobiles attached to our clothing or etc. In future, mobile phones will come in very different shapes.
And Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg is going to be giving the keynote address there. All eyes, of course, on him after last week's surprise $19 billion purchase of WhatsApp. His presence there a sign of really how important the mobile industry is to internet giants like Google and Facebook.
Yeah, superstar appearance, isn't it, for them? Let's have a look at the markets now. How are we starting off the week?
We've had a pretty rocky start to the trading week. Investors don't seem to have been very inspired by this weekend's G20 meeting, at which finance ministers vowed to increase global growth by about 2%. Markets have just opened here in Europe, as you can see, all in negative territory, following in that negative trend that we saw in Asia. The Nikkei closed down slightly, the Shanghai Composite dropping nearly 2%. This on data that showed that new home prices in China stabilized for the first time in 14 months, growing just 9.6% in January.
Okay, lots of red across the board there. Let's turn our attention back to the day's top news story, the political upheaval in Ukraine. You've been looking through the economic side for us.
Yeah, well, Ukraine's economy is really on the verge of collapse, and it now faces a lack of funds from Moscow. Moscow, of course, having frozen its assistance package. Officials from the US and Europe are urging Kiev to look west for economic assistance. Elena Casas has the details.
Ukraine's protest movement may have removed the hated President Yanukovych, but they are stuck with his money problems. The 3-month crisis has sent bond yields soaring and seen the currency lose a tenth of its value. Ukraine's now paying up to 34% to borrow cash in the short term and 11.3% over 10 years. Interim President Alexander Turchinov knows balancing the books must be a priority.
Recovering the economy is the mission of the new government, which will be formed after the presidential elections. The mission of the new government is to stop Ukraine from heading into an abyss.
But elections to form that government won't be held until May, while Ukraine will need to pay a chunk of the 10 billion euros it owes in debt repayments before then. It was financial need that pushed Yanukovych to reject an EU agreement in favour of Russia, sparking the crisis. Moscow offered him an 11 billion euro bailout. A fifth of that has been paid out, but the rest is in doubt after Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov called the change of government a coup. The IMF has promised to step into the financial breach.
If the Ukrainian authorities were to ask for IMF support, whether it's policy advice, whether it's financial support together with economic reform discussions, obviously we stand ready to do that.
EU leaders have said they'll follow suit, with British Finance Minister George Osborne saying the Union was ready to help. Wherever the money comes from, the interim government must fill the hole in its balance sheet. Otherwise, Ukraine could soon add bankruptcy to its problems.
Okay, let's finish off with some less internationally vital economic news, but still very interesting all the same. We're talking about the rap star Nicki Minaj, who's got into a spot of business trouble. Tell us why.
Well, she's getting sued by her former hairstylist, if you can believe it.
Well, I never.
If you know anything about Nicki Minaj anyway, you know that her very flamboyant hair pieces are part of her signature. They're really part of her image.
You mean that's not her own hair?
I don't think so. It can't be all the time anyway. Look at the changes you see there. Anyway, her former hairstylist, Terrence Davidson, says that she's been taking wigs that he designed and selling them under her own name as her own. He also says that the rapper's team discouraged him from taking part in a reality show, but then didn't follow through with plans to produce another show that would include him and Nicki herself. He says all these developments have damaged his reputation and business to the tune of $30 million.
$30 million. Well, I wonder what Oliver Farry makes of that here for the press review.
At least I have heard of her.
Yes, that's true. Some members of our team haven't heard of Nicki Minaj, but we certainly have. Thanks very much. We've also heard of Kate Moody. Thank you for the business news. We are going to be looking at the international papers right now with Oliver Farry. Much less frivolous matters, in fact, on our minds, looking at Ukraine.
Indeed, yeah. And we're going to start